Hey.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hey. What's a fun fact about yourself?
I was born on my mom's birthday.
Well, actually, I love astronomy.
I went through Chicago Public Schools K through 12.
I grew up singing in church. I was actually in the church choir.
So I'm a big Chicago sports fan.
And I actually have a telescope, and I practice urban astronomy whenever I have some free time.
I took Korean as my foreign language. 안녕하세요.
What's the victory you're most proud of?
So when I was at the People's Lobby, and I helped start the End Money Bond Coalition, and I'm proud to have been able to carry the bill to end money bond, end wealth-based detention, and to make public safety for all.
Is passing and helping to write the Illinois Council on Women and Girls Act. I'm proud of that legislation because I brought it back on the statewide level. We protected the rights of working class women, women of color, who would advise the governor and state lawmakers on any policy or funding that directly impacted us.
Why do you support the Pretrial Fairness Act?
It's about fundamentally shifting our public safety policies from the tough on crime system that helped produce me. My biological mom was addicted to drugs and alcohol. She was very working class, a working class black woman, to a system that actually invests in people.
Because we need to decriminalize poverty. I'm running for Congress because I'm a resident of the South Austin neighborhood on the west side of Chicago, and we have something that you call $1 million blocks. $1 million are invested per block, incarcerating working class people.
I saw many different inequities that impacted the families that I worked with. One of those inequities was if someone was arrested and had to go to jail, it really broke families.
We've had a system that's kept the poor people, black and brown, working class, low-income people, in prison, in jail, waiting, separated from their family, from their children, from community, just on the basis that they just can't afford bail.
Because ending money bond means keeping people in their communities.
What's your vision of the future?
Is one that we talk about competent diversity in government.
My vision of the future is a future where housing is a human right.
It's to make sure that people have the things that they need. I've mentioned this over and over again, but if we want to have a safe and just and good community, then we have to give people a roof over their head. We have to make sure they have food on their table, and we can't punish people for the tough conditions that they're in.
Hey.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hey.
What's a fun fact about yourself?
I was born on my mom's birthday.
Well, actually, I love astronomy.
I went through Chicago Public Schools K through 12.
I grew up singing in church. I was actually in the church choir.
So I'm a big Chicago sports fan.
And I actually have a telescope, and I practice urban astronomy whenever I have some free time.
I took Korean as my foreign language. 안녕하세요.
What's the victory you're most proud of?
So when I was at the People's Lobby, and I helped start the End Money Bond Coalition, and I'm proud to have been able to carry the bill to end money bond, end wealth-based detention, and to make public safety for all.
Is passing and helping to write the Illinois Council on Women and Girls Act. I'm proud of that legislation because I brought it back on the statewide level. We protected the rights of working class women, women of color, who would advise the governor and state lawmakers on any policy or funding that directly impacted us.
Why do you support the Pretrial Fairness Act?
It's about fundamentally shifting our public safety policies from the tough on crime system that helped produce me. My biological mom was addicted to drugs and alcohol. She was very working class, a working class black woman, to a system that actually invests in people.
Because we need to decriminalize poverty. I'm running for Congress because I'm a resident of the South Austin neighborhood on the west side of Chicago, and we have something that you call $1 million blocks. $1 million are invested per block, incarcerating working class people.
I saw many different inequities that impacted the families that I worked with. One of those inequities was if someone was arrested and had to go to jail, it really broke families.
We've had a system that's kept the poor people, black and brown, working class, low-income people, in prison, in jail, waiting, separated from their family, from their children, from community, just on the basis that they just can't afford bail.
Because ending money bond means keeping people in their communities.
What's your vision of the future?
Is one that we talk about competent diversity in government.
My vision of the future is a future where housing is a human right.
To make sure that people have the things that they need. I've mentioned this over and over again, but if we want to have a safe and just and good community, then we have to give people a roof over their head. We have to make sure they have food on their table, and we can't punish people for the tough conditions that they're in.
Hey,
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hey.
What's a fun fact about yourself?
I was born on my mom's birthday.
Well, actually, I love astronomy.
I went through Chicago Public Schools K through 12.
I grew up singing in church. I was actually in the church choir.
So I'm a big Chicago sports fan.
And I actually have a telescope, and I practice urban astronomy whenever I have some free time.
I took Korean as my foreign language. 안녕하세요.
What's the victory you're most proud of?
So when I was at the People's Lobby, and I helped start the End Money Bond Coalition, and I'm proud to have been able to carry the bill to end money bond, end wealth-based detention, and to make public safety for all.
Is passing and helping to write the Illinois Council on Women and Girls Act. I'm proud of that legislation because I brought it back on the statewide level. We protected the rights of working class women, women of color, who would advise the governor and state lawmakers on any policy or funding that directly impacted us.
why do you support the Pretrial Fairness?
$1 million are invested.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. This is going to be a wonderful evening. If you saw any of that video, you believe me, this is just a whirlwind night we have planned for you, featuring so many of the beautiful faces that you just saw. We're going to be hearing from candidates at all levels of government who share our concern for the people and the planet. We're going to learn about what's at stake in this election season and how every single one of us can be a part of growing important knowledge and power in our communities. We are going to be able to participate in building the world we want to see. So we're so thankful that so many of these candidates are coming together so that we can hear from all of them tonight. We are delighted also that you are here, and we would love to hear your thoughts. So please make use of the comment section. I see some of you have already been doing that. So hi to Autumn, hi to Viveke. We're so delighted that you're here. We would love for you to introduce yourself. Take a moment to share these live streams on your social media pages, whether you're a Facebook user or if you're logging in through YouTube. You know, YouTube can be shared on every platform. Email your grandma. We want her to know about this too. And make sure you text it to your friends, your neighbors. We have a really awesome slate planned this evening. So please share this with as many people as you can. And I just want to emphasize that I am pretty much brand new to the People's Lobby. I only was introduced to them a few months ago, and it is so clear to me that they love people. We love people. I've been welcomed into this family instantly, and I'm so glad to be here, and you are welcome here just as I was welcome here. But it's hard to build connections virtually. So make sure if you're here, if you haven't connected with the People's Lobby before, that you say something. The People's Lobby is also going to be all over the chat. We're going to be watching. We're going to be watching for shares, for who's commenting. We are here to participate with the people and the planet. Let's do this. So to get us started, now that we've all shared this on our social media pages, I am going to introduce Tim, who is one of our incredible organizers from Oak Park, who's going to get this evening kicked off for us.
Good evening, everyone. During my lifetime, the most significant political event I've witnessed was the passage of the Affordable Care Act. And to this day, Republicans in Congress have been trying to repeal it. But through a lot of grassroots activism, including multiple public pressure events, phone calls, days of action, hardworking Americans have been able to hold the line on healthcare reform. In Illinois, the People's Lobby has had significant victories also, which include raising the Cook County minimum wage in 2016, playing an important role in passing a statewide climate change bill that centers green energy and racial equity, closing corporate tax loopholes, and on 2 occasions raising nearly $800 million for state services and successfully fighting back against policies that drive mass incarceration in Cook County, ensuring the justice system is much fairer. We've helped anchor the statewide coalition for pretrial fairness, ending money bond in Illinois. That helps keep families together while defendants await their day in court, and it allows them to keep working and meeting their commitment to their loved ones. Today, we will hear from progressive leaders who were instrumental in making those legislative victories happen, many of whom the People's Lobby helped elect.
Oh, I can't hear. Can you hear me?
Actually, I think it's me. I apologize. Pardon the delay. It's me.
Okay.
Well, I will start introducing everyone. Thank you, Kina Collins. My name is Maria Sinkiel, and I'm a volunteer here with the People's Lobby. I'm excited to be here with 2 influential candidates that will make a significant impact here in Congress. So thank you, Kina Collins, for being here. Kina was born and raised in Austin, neighborhood of the west side of Chicago. She grew up in a working class union family. Her father, a factory worker, and her mother, a crossing guard and certified nursing assistant, and attended Chicago public schools. Growing up on the west side of Chicago, Kina saw her community heavily impacted by gun violence, failing healthcare systems, lack of economic opportunity, and closed neighborhood schools. Once in office, she'll fight for an economy that works for everyone, not just the wealthiest people at the top. So thank you, Kina, for being here. I also wanted to introduce another person that's very important, is Delia Ramirez for congressional representative.
Delia's not in the stream yet, so if you want to go ahead and start with Kina, and I'll let you know as soon as she is in.
Okay, I could start with Kina. So, Kina, I did have a couple questions that I wanted to ask, and I appreciate you being here. And then when Mr. Ramirez comes on, I'll ask the same questions. But Kina, from your organizing experience, what pushed you or compelled you into running for office?
Well, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So first off, let me just say I'm a huge fan of the People's Lobby and the work that the People's Lobby has been doing to build real power, sustainable power for working class families. And so this was one of our key endorsements that we were really seeking, because we know the accountability metric that gets put into place when you have folks like the People's Lobby on your side. I will just make it really quick. My parents are union workers. My dad is Teamster. My mom is SEIU. And so community and keeping community at the core and a working class analysis is basically what I operate out of. And I think that those who are closest to the pain should be closest to the power when we're talking about legislating, when we're talking about organizing in community. And I decided to run from that organizing background because I wanted a representative who has a pulse on the district, who knows what is happening, who knows what's going on, and who will put working class families at the forefront.
Excellent. I appreciate that, Kina. I apologize for this minor interruption. I do have Delia here. I will introduce her as well so that we could actually get both of your perspectives on some of these important questions that I think a lot of the people would like to hear. I know I introduced Representative or current congressional candidate for the 7th District. I'm going to introduce Delia Ramirez for the congressional district for the 3rd area. Sorry, I can't speak. She's actually running for my congressional district, so it makes me happy. Before running for office, Delia served as the founding executive director of the Center for Changing Lives, board chair for both the Land United Community Housing Association, Lucha, in the Logan Square Neighborhood Association. She is currently a state representative for the 4th State House District. She is the daughter of immigrant parents and the first Guatemalan American to serve in the Illinois General Assembly. Delia established a legislative housing committee, successfully passed legislation expanding affordable housing, Medicare coverage for senior citizens regardless of immigration status, and the creation of an elected school board in the city of Chicago. So again, both of these leaders have a history of organizing and advocating for issues important to our community, such as immigration, environment, and healthcare. So I know I just started with the first question to Kina, but I'm going to kick that same question over, and I apologize, Ms. Ramirez. I appreciate you coming on, but I did start off with a question. Before I ask a question, what I wanted to know too, or let you have the opportunity to share anything about yourself. I apologize, Delia, I can't hear you.
You're on mute, Delia.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, didn't bring the laptop to the office today. That was a mistake. First, I want to say, Maria and Kina, it is so great to be with both of you in the same show at the same time. I literally feel the power and the resilience of the two of you as I'm in this show and through this phone. I am daughter of immigrants, born and raised in Chicago, born in Cook County Hospital. That's for like all Chicago people will know the Cook County Hospital is what it was before it was Stroger Hospital. And I am running to be not just to be the first Latina from the Midwest to go to Congress, but to be a progressive voice in the way that I've been in the state legislature, and to make sure that we make the connections between what's happening in our communities and also the policy work that needs to be done to deliver in our neighborhoods.
So our question actually kind of stems from, and actually two powerful women, right? And you're organizing. Your question, similar to Kina's, from your organizing experience, what pushed you or compelled you into running for office?
You know, I think I walked in when Kina was using a quote, like she was repeating a quote that's really close to my heart. It's something that I heard Ayanna Pressley say when she ran for Congress the first time, which was that those that are closest to the pain should be closest to the power. And I always add 2 more words to change it, right? Because we need people at the center who really understand what's happening. In this 3rd congressional, it's another open seat, the same way that 4 years ago was an open seat that I ran in. We have the opportunity to send someone from our community, someone that actually sees this work personal, that knows what it's like to have a father who's 71 years old and on Medicare and having to pay a portion of it just because he owns his home, and still has to work a second job at 71 because he can never retire because he can't afford to retire in this country. Like, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be the daughter of a home care worker that is on minimum wage, caring for our seniors, but in a country where we don't value the work of care. And my mother is on Medicaid coverage. And when I tell her, Mom, you need to go somewhere else, or you need to ask for a raise, you know what she first tells me? Delia, if I get a $2 raise, while it's great, I can't afford the insurance from the company, because in this country, we have a system where we don't have Medicare for all. We don't have high quality healthcare. So it means that it is cheaper for my mom. It is easier for my mom to be on Medicaid and make less money than to afford health insurance and her insulin and be able to have the adequate healthcare. It is an opportunity for me running for the seat to be that person that takes this work personally, that won't take $1 from corporate PACs, but also sees the opportunity to also build bench from the most eastern part, that's where I live, to the most western part, where we have Latinos who've just never been engaged. We've never seen them. We've never engaged them. There's an opportunity to engage the base, to organize, and to send more of us across the different levels into office to represent us, so that those most closest to the pain can be most closest to the power to change it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Delia. Kina, one of the questions, and it's going to go to both of you, but Kina, when you get to DC, how are you planning to remain rooted in your community and keep them at the forefront of what you are fighting for in Congress?
Yeah, because I live in one of the most impacted areas in the Illinois 7th Congressional District, which is the west side of Chicago. And when we talk about, a lot of Black folks in the Democratic Party who also feel left behind, but have delivered election cycle after election cycle, it means we cannot water down the message. We have to make sure that we're fighting for those issues that are extremely important to the folks who live in these communities. And so that means staying connected to community groups. I've often said, even in my first time running for Congress in 2020, that in my first 100 days, I want to put together a healthcare and life expectancy task force of experts. And those experts are community members, because you don't need to sit in a seat for 40 years to say that we need strong public schools, we need clean air, we need the lead out of our water, to say that public housing is safety, it's violence prevention, right? To say that children in our community should not have to grow up their entire life and not see a proper grocery store. And so I plan on staying connected, like I said, and keeping those accountability metrics in place by working with groups like the People's Lobby and the Sunrise Movement, who has endorsed us, and even national groups like Justice Democrats, who has pushed forth and put forth folks like a Representative Ocasio-Cortez and Ayanna Pressley and Cori Bush. And so what we're seeing from these groups collectively on the ground and nationally is that they see the vision that we have for the Illinois 7, and that when we get into office, that political pressure gets applied. And then it comes down to who are we able to go to make sure to let us know that we aren't the crazy ones, right? It's not radical to ask for health care. It's not radical to ask to cancel student loan debt, and that we can't continue to kick the can down the road when we talk about immigration reform in this country and a clear pathway to citizenship for people. And so I plan on doing that by working with the groups that I have always worked with in my organizing background and in my professional career.
Thank you, Kina. And last, I'll have Delia, if you could respond to the same question, how will you remain rooted in our communities?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You can't hear me? Okay, great. I lost sound on your side. So, I mean, I just want to say that I listened to Kina, and it's hard to follow what she says, because for both of us, it's very personal. And we come from our communities, who we every single day we see why we have to work harder and why we have to be unapologetic. I would also say to you this, that who people have been before they run for office is very telling to you on who they're going to be when they run for office. Who they have been when they've been in office now is going to be telling who they're going to be. I want to make sure that I stay rooted, because I want to stay connected to the same people that got me to state rep 4 years ago and that keep me accountable. They're the ones I go to for endorsements. They're also the ones that I go to for policy. Not one piece of legislation that I have filed has been legislation that I came up with. These were coalitions. And I'm taking those coalitions with me to Congress to negotiate bills, to be front and center. I want to make sure that we're very clear that when we're negotiating, it's really easy to go into a closed room and try to do that. That is not building collaboratively, and that's not bringing your district with you. I intend to bring my district, establish committees here, but ensure that they're the ones that are front and center with me when I'm in Congress.
And if I could just add one thing, because I think this is a very important part for this primary. And when we talk about, and midterms, when we talk about a return of representative democracy, when we say we want to root out a lot of these problems, whether it's voting rights, reproductive health care, as we're seeing the obstruction of justice by people like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, who are performatively saying that they're Democrats, but not showing that through their actions, we need to take big money out of politics. That's how you stay rooted. Follow the money on who's running these campaigns and who's funding these campaigns. And you'll see exactly where a lot of these elected officials align. And so it's extremely important that we continue to build the infrastructure, donor lists, volunteer lists, so that we can run people unapologetically for these seats. And they mean what they say, and they say what they mean. The way we win these campaigns is organized people and organized money.
Yes. Yes, Kina. Yes, Delia. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Maria, thank you. Thank you, all three of you incredible ladies, for being here, for sharing your vision. This is such a gift. It's so inspiring. And the thing that resonates so loudly with both of you, Kina and Delia, is just power. Not just the power that you have within yourselves, but the power that you have the capacity to grow that you see in your communities, that you uplift. I am thrilled that the People's Lobby is supporting the two of you. We are excited to welcome both of you and walk with both of you into the halls of Congress. At this point, we have a short video that will feature all of the people that we're here to hear from this evening.
Hey.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hey. What's a fun fact about yourself?
I was born on my mom's birthday.
Well, actually, I love astronomy.
I went through Chicago Public Schools K through 12.
I grew up singing in church. I was actually in the church choir.
So I'm a big Chicago sports fan.
And I actually have a telescope, and I practice urban astronomy whenever I have some free time.
I took Korean as my foreign language. 안녕하세요.
What's the victory you're most proud of?
So when I was at the People's Lobby, and I helped start the End Money Bond Coalition, and I'm proud to have been able to carry the bill to end money bond and wealth-based detention, and to make public safety for all.
Is passing and helping to write the Illinois Council on Women and Girls Act. I'm proud of that legislation because I brought it back on the statewide level. We protected the rights of working class women, women of color, who would advise the governor and state lawmakers on any policy or funding that directly impacted us.
Why do you support the Pretrial Fairness Act?
It's about fundamentally shifting our public safety policies from the tough on crime system that helped produce me. My mom, my biological mom, was addicted to drugs and alcohol. She was very working class, a working class black woman, to a system that actually invests in people.
Because we need to decriminalize poverty. I'm running for Congress because I'm a resident of the South Austin neighborhood on the west side of Chicago, and we have something that you call $1 million blocks. $1 million are invested per block incarcerating working class people.
I saw many different inequities that impacted the families that I worked with. One of those inequities was if someone was arrested and had to go to jail, it really broke families.
We've had a system that's kept the poor people, black and brown, working class, low-income people, in prison, in jail, waiting, separated from their family, from their children, from community, just on the basis that they just can't afford bail.
Because ending money bond means keeping people in their communities.
What's your vision of the future?
Is one that we talk about competent diversity in government.
My vision of the future
All right. I hope you all were able to hear that as well as I was. Maybe visually it wasn't exactly what we were hoping for, but this is the virtual world we're living in, and I'm so sorry about that. The good news is that we will be able to see more of these people's faces as they come and visit with us live here tonight. So without any further ado, I am going to introduce Arthur. He is an incredible person who was actually first introduced to the People's Lobby through one of the candidates that he's going to be interviewing tonight. So go ahead, Arthur.
All right. So thank you, Katrina. So like I said, my name's Arthur Dennis, and I'm an educator dedicated to fighting educational inequities, which I do by volunteering with the People's Lobby, supporting groups of candidates, and promoting community engagement within the Black community with the Chicago Urban League. I am just so excited and honored to facilitate this conversation with many of our state-level endorsed candidates tonight, as they have been our champions in Springfield to put people and planet first. In addition to the candidates we'll meet tonight, we've also endorsed State Rep. Kelly Cassidy from Chicago's far north side and State Rep. Theresa Mah from Chicago's near southwest side. So even though we didn't see our full video, we're going to start with two really dynamic candidates, State Senator Rob Martwick and State Representative Lindsey LaPointe, who both represent the northwest side of Chicago. So starting with, starting with Representative LaPointe. She represents the 19th district. She's a social worker and got involved in politics as a neighborhood volunteer. This past year, she championed emergency housing legislation and fought hard to make our unemployment system more equitable and accessible. And then we have State Senator Rob Martwick. He represents the 10th district. He's been a long-time progressive advocate on the northwest side. This past year, among other wins, he worked with the CTU, or the Chicago Teachers Union, to win an elected school board for Chicago. So my question to you two to start us off is, what were the most important Springfield wins that you played a role in this past session that put people and the environment ahead of the interests of the very rich? We'll start with Representative LaPointe, and then we'll head over to Senator Rob Martwick.
Thank you so much, Arthur. And first of all, it's just so awesome to be here. I'm standing virtually next to some of our most progressive champions in Springfield. As Arthur, as you said, I am a former social worker. I'm a social worker at heart and by training. And it's really the work I did right after college with kids with special needs. And that's work where I was earning about $9 an hour that inspired me to get into. I had to get over my intimidation. And then it's that work as a social worker that inspired me to get into Chicago politics. First and foremost, I am so proud to have stood alongside 18 other Democrats in the Illinois House to demand new leadership in the Illinois House. We were able to turn a corner, get our first new Black Speaker of the House, Emmanuel Chris Welch, and Mike Madigan, who served for, I think, almost 36 years, is no longer. And that is a seismic change that really set the table to allow us to take on big wins. And there's a few things I'm most proud of besides just that table setting and that seismic shift of leadership change. One of them is the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, which is lovingly known as CEJA. And it took years, and it took pushing our legislative session into the summer. But in Illinois, we now have a nation-leading climate action law on the books. And we have put Illinois on a pathway to 100% renewable energy by 2050. That only happened because certain people were in office, because certain people were our speaker, and certain people are governor. And I was very proud to stand in lockstep with a small group of legislators who during negotiations said, and this is the unglamorous work of legislating, we are not going to vote for a bill unless it has a concrete timeline to decarbonize Illinois. And so now every single coal plant in Illinois is on a pathway to shut down by 2050. And that was on the front page of the Sun-Times this weekend. So that's something I am so proud of. And I know that the people of the 19th district wanted that as well. Another thing that I'm really, really proud of, and this is kind of the unglamorous negotiation work of legislating, is in a last minute budget negotiation session in late May of 2021, I stood with a small group of women to demand $50 million more for our service system for adults with developmental disabilities. And budgets are always about choices. And this one was about, are we finally going to invest in the system that we really never have invested in Illinois that will prevent our 20-somethings and 30-somethings with autism from sitting on a couch into their adult years, unable to access programming, where our workers go to work and earn $11 an hour doing the hardest work? Or are we going to close another corporate loophole? And we are thankful to have a governor who laid out our options, for how do we close corporate loopholes so then we can have the money to finally invest in our chronically underfunded systems to get our young adults with disabilities what they need.
Wow, that just makes so much sense. Thank you so much, Representative LaPointe. I'd love to hear now your opinion on the same question to Senator Martwick.
Thank you, Arthur, and thank you everyone here at the People's Lobby. It's great to be with all of you, and thank you, Arthur, for stating the fact that I have long been a progressive champion. Thank you for pointing out that I've been around a little bit of a while. But, it's really been an honor to have served in this role And I think about the progress that our state has made over the course of the last decade while I've been in the General Assembly, whether it was the Marriage Equality and Fairness Act when I first came in, the Reproductive Health Act, securing women's access to abortion services regardless of what happens to Roe versus Wade. The fact that I had the opportunity to bring the state as, we lost the fight for a fair tax, for a graduated income tax, but the idea that we're able actually to get to that point, to me, gives me motivation to keep fighting for something that I think is so critical as we go forward, and that's addressing the horrible, horrible ills of income inequality in our country. But you mentioned two things, and so you kind of took the show away from me, but I would say that the two things that I was most proud to work of in the last session was CEJA, as Lindsey mentioned. That was something that I was one of the very first sponsors of CEJA and co-sponsors of CEJA, and it has been an ongoing fight, and it's one of those things that we took this incremental change bit by bit by bit as we started to move that needle towards renewable energies, and then finally we're able to bring it home with the passes of CEJA in this last year, and it's really monumental. Of course, there's nothing perhaps in the General Assembly that I'm more proud of than passing the bill that will create an elected school board in the Chicago Public Schools. It's something that I campaigned on 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, when I campaigned on it, I would knock on people's doors and I would say, I'm for an elected school board. And people would say, okay, tell me about that, because I don't really know anything about that. And yet, over time, working with groups like the People's Lobby, working with the coalition of groups that supported an elected school board, over the course of the last decade, it was the most organic grassroots growth around an issue, so much so that by the time the bill was up for a vote in the General Assembly, and the mayor and some other people were calling members of the General Assembly and asking them to vote no, the response that they got from members of the General Assembly was, when I campaigned for this office, my constituents demanded that I support an elected school board. And we were able to pass it and get it done. And I think that that will finally give the residents of the city of Chicago the accountability over their system of education that they're entitled to. And when we have that accountability, when we have that elective representation, then we can take ownership in our schools and steer them in the direction that's going to be best for our city and for our children.
Thank you so much for that. And as an educator, I really appreciate your words. So thank you so much, Senator Martwick, and thank you so much, Representative LaPointe. We now have our next speakers that are coming up. So our next two legislators are actually leaders that come from their community to uplift their community. So first, I want to start with State Senator Kina. She represents the 25th district. She is a social worker who grew up in the district she now represents. She's flipped 2 seats from red to blue and is building a progressive base in the western suburbs. She's championed resources for undocumented college students and created food assistance programs for new parents. And then we have State Senator Robert Peters, who represents the 13th district. He's an organizer born and raised in the south side of Chicago. Before holding elected office, Senator Peters was actually the political director for the People's Lobby. So he's not new to our fight and cares deeply about redefining public safety. Senator Peters passed 12 bills in his first year. It was essential to getting the Pretrial Fairness Act introduced and passed. So my question to you two is, what have you done in Springfield to help make our communities safer? And we'll start with Senator Villa, then we'll end with Senator Peters, and ask that you two try to keep your response to 2 minutes so we can ensure that everybody has a chance to hear your wonderful ideas. So Senator Villa.
Arthur, thank you so much for the question. I am very proud to be a suburbanite and to represent the far west suburbs, and especially with this topic about safety. So one of the things that I want to highlight is just overall the safety that we have provided for folks living in the state of Illinois who are undocumented, making sure that it is a safe place for them to live and prosper and raise their families. I think that another community that we have stood by and said we are allies unapologetically is with the LGBTQ+ community. When we see what other states are doing in regards especially to folks who identify as transgender. It is appalling, and I am proud to stand here in the state of Illinois saying that kids, when they go to school, they're going to be able to look at history books and see themselves identified in these history books because of legislation that we passed here in the state of Illinois. Also, as a member of the Latino caucus, one of the things that has been the greatest success, I think, is getting Medicaid for undocumented adults 55 and older. We know that if there is parity in healthcare, we have safer communities. Those are some of the things that I wanted to highlight, and I would be amiss not to mention one of my deep passions, which is making sure that we have equity in public education, because we know that if we have students who have opportunities in the education, in their education, that they are going to live and prosper and be able to give back to their communities. So one of my top priorities is making sure that we are fully funding our education funding formula.
Thank you so much, Senator Villa, and I'm just so inspired by your words. So next up, we'll go into Senator Peters.
Let me first say that Senator Villa, Karina's amazing. She's a badass, and it's an honor to serve with her. Yeah, so for me, I think about, we've passed a series of bills, and I've been lucky to be able to be the sponsor of them and lucky to work with amazing organizations and amazing people on them, and a few sort of come to mind. The first one being the Reimagined Public Safety Act, which is going to move $250 million into youth intervention and trauma intervention and violence prevention. This is so that we can actually look at gun violence and violence as a public health crisis. And it's something I'm very proud of that we were able to get done last year. Another bill that stands out to me, and again, it really goes to people who've been organized around these issues for quite a period of time, is that we're going to be the first state in the country to have mental health first responders. And this wouldn't have happened without the organization that has been going on really since the closure of those mental health clinics and the amount of work that's been going around that, so that when there's a crisis, when there is someone going through some pain and trauma, that they're met with someone who's trained to do that in the behavioral health and mental health space. And so I've been proud to carry that and to see that get done. And then one that obviously we talked about here, and I think it's been something I've been working on since I was the political director at the People's Lobby, and that is moving away from wealth-based detention and making sure that we pass the Pretrial Fairness Act, and it actually gets implemented on the 1st of January 2023, no matter the talking points. Fundamentally, we want to have a deep and profound conversation about what it means to have safety. And what we know is that for the last 30 to 40 years, we have watched the status quo fail to keep us safe. That's whether you're in West Chicago or you're in the South Side of Chicago. That is something that is a fact. People don't feel safe, and we should not double down on the status quo. And so we have a real opportunity when it comes to intervening at the point of trauma. We have a real opportunity to make sure that people have money in their pocket instead of having it taken out due to a wealth-based detention system. And we have a real opportunity that when you're going through a crisis, that's actually treated, whether it's a mental health crisis or a physical health crisis. And so let me end. I've been told that I talk too long, so I'm going to try to keep it brief. And let me end it by saying this. If you give people a good school, you give people a roof over their head, you give people a good job, and you make sure that they can get from point A to point B in relatively an easy fashion, what you have is public safety. And if you look at the safest communities, that's what they provide. And so at the end of the day, that is the fight that we have in Springfield. That's what we're going to do in Illinois. And that's why we should be proud of the state, because we're on that journey. We can't go back and we can't double down on the status quo. So thank you so much, Arthur, and thank you, TPL, for all the work that you do.
Whew. If y'all weren't energized with what these two just said, then let me do the energizing for all of us. Thank you so much, you two. So moving forward with our next speaker, we have Michael Rabbit. He is a candidate for state rep in the 15th district, a longtime organizer in his community, member of the People's Lobby, and he is passionate about environmental justice, access to affordable housing, and public safety for all. If elected, he will further grow the progressive power movement on the northwest side of Chicago. So my question to you, Michael, is why are you running for office? What is it that you want to accomplish for your constituents, and how do these things align with the People's Lobby's values and priorities? And you have about 2 minutes to do so.
You bet. Thanks so much, Arthur. The victories we achieve as organizers, it's highly motivating. And so for me, that includes my organizing work for racial justice and for affordable housing, as well as my advocacy work on economic justice issues with the People's Lobby. And I'm constantly looking for ways to make a bigger impact. And I've decided it's time to make that larger impact by running for state representative. I'm also running now because of what's at stake for our state. We are living in unprecedented times. We need leaders who have the passion and experience to get things done for our communities. And I'm proud to say the values and priorities of the People's Lobby are prominent in my campaign. As our members know, it's about reclaiming democracy and putting people and planet first. So we reclaim our democracy when we dismantle machine politics and empower our communities. As a movement candidate, I'm running to dislodge the machine that's dominated my district for far too long, and restore power to the people in the 15th district and continue to build our progressive movement in this area. So we put people first when we fight for the funding and resources our communities need. I'm running to fully fund public education, expand access to quality healthcare, and of course, affordable housing. We also put people first when we work for safe communities. This means solutions focused on investments, intervention, and innovation. And that includes protecting pretrial justice. We put planet first when we commit to clean, renewable energy and climate solutions. That's part of the work that we do at Argonne National Laboratory, where I'm very proud to work. It's part of my strong commitment to environmental justice. So that's why I'm running, and I'm so grateful to be an endorsed candidate with the People's Lobby. And with everybody's help, let's work together to achieve this vision. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for those powerful words. So last but not least, our final champions tonight, like everyone here tonight, they don't simply talk about their politics, they actually walk it. So we have State Senator Ram Villivalam, who represents the 8th District. He's the proud son of Indian immigrant parents, and seeing his parents struggle motivated him to serve his community. Since beating a 20-year incumbent, he has been a champion for workers' rights, gun violence prevention, and equitable transportation infrastructure. State Representative Will Guzzardi represents the 39th District. A longtime People's Lobby ally, Representative Guzzardi focuses on fighting social and economic inequalities by advocating for affordable housing, gun violence prevention, and prescription drug affordability. And fun fact, both these legislators, with their allies, helped close $650 million in corporate tax loopholes in this past year. So my question to you two is, in the past, our communities have felt ignored except around election time. So how have you partnered with the People's Lobby to bring our communities into the legislative process and have our voices heard year round? We'll start with Senator Villivalam and then with Representative Guzzardi. And as always, you have about 90 seconds to 2 minutes.
Arthur, thank you so much, first and foremost, for having me. And I just want to thank the People's Lobby from the bottom of my heart for all of the support that they've given me through the years and the collaboration that we've had from day one. And I apologize in advance. I have a 3-year-old and 6-month-old at home, so there's a little activity going on. I will keep the 2 minutes. I think Senator Peters went over, but I think he has a little leeway. I couldn't agree with you more. We need to make sure that when we're asking people to participate in our democracy by voting, that it doesn't stop there. We need to make sure that as we pursue legislative session on January 1 to May 31st, that we continue to engage them and find out what their concerns are. So the first thing that I did was I said, I'm not going to just hold an end of session town hall. I'm going to hold a beginning of session and mid-session town hall, because I don't want to just tell people what we did after session is done. I want to make sure they're part of the process in the beginning and in the middle of session in order to get their feedback. And I'm proud to say that I was able to do that in collaboration with members from the People's Lobby. One of my really good friends, someone that spearheaded efforts on my campaign, Veronica Ariola, and I did a town hall together where she was able to ask questions and we had a panel like style. And that's important because I want to make sure people from our community are part of the process. We also have community groups, advisory groups, like our multi-ethnic advisory group, that's really allowed people to come together from different backgrounds and explain perspectives, for example, on one of the issues we're talking about when it comes to criminal justice reform and others. So I've really tried to hold events, hold small coffees, get to know the community members, especially those as part of the People's Lobby, to ensure that their voices are heard throughout the process, not just around election time.
Wow. Thank you so much for those truthful and powerful words. And to round us off for the night, we have Representative Will Guzzardi.
Thanks so much, Arthur. It's so great to be with the People's Lobby. As you said, that word long time, just like with Senator Martwick, it makes me feel kind of old in this game, but I have been working with you all at the People's Lobby for 10 years in this work. And I just want to underscore the comments that have been made about closing tax loopholes. Representative LaPointe said that the governor sort of laid out this menu of corporate tax loopholes and we were able to close several of them. But that menu didn't just come from nowhere. That came from ongoing engagement between the People's Lobby and allied groups and us as legislators, you all electing us into office, and then us working together throughout legislative session after legislative session, developing these policy ideas. I introduced the bill over and over again to close these corporate tax loopholes. And so when it came time for us to find new revenue to fund the critically important programs that our communities need, there was, these ideas were out there already because we had worked so hard together to put them into the collective consciousness. So that's in terms of the ongoing work, right? I think it's getting our allies and champions into office and then supporting us, you all supporting us, and us being in dialogue with strategy about the kinds of legislative interventions that our communities really need and how we can develop a game plan to get them done. That partnership with the People's Lobby has been invaluable throughout my career, and I look forward to it.
Thank you so much. And then we have the great Katrina to help us continue with the program.
The great Katrina.
Yes.
Oh my. I feel like every single one of the candidates we just heard from is doing truly fantastic work. The way that they are building power with all of us in the People's Lobby is inspirational. And man, so much of what we heard, I just want to reiterate, but there's simply not time for that. So we are going to move forward and hear from our last group of candidates for the night. We've heard from people running at the federal and the state level, and we are now going to hear from our candidates at the Cook County level. And for that, I'm going to be passing it back to Tim, who we've heard from at the beginning. Welcome, Tim.
All right. So Cook County government often flies under the radar, but they have a tremendous responsibility towards our communities, including running our public health care system, which provides care for the uninsured, including undocumented neighbors. The county also runs the court system and the county jail, as well as over 70,000 acres of public forest reserve that gets more than 60 million visits each year. Tonight, I am thrilled to welcome my commissioner, Brandon Johnson, who is a member of Chicago's teacher union, and candidates Josina Morita, who is running to replace retiring Commissioner Larry Sufferton on Chicago's far north side and north suburbs, and Anthony Cazada, who is running for the 8th District on Chicago's northwest side. He is a longtime co-conspirator with the People's Lobby and an organizer with several other allied organizations. I also want to point out and note that the People's Lobby has also endorsed Alma Anaya and Kevin Morrison, who are both running for re-election in the 7th and 15th District. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Good evening.
Hey, good evening, Tim. It's good to see you.
Good to see you all. So Natasha, a few questions. Commissioner, so what has Cook County done during the pandemic to strengthen communities and keep us safer?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it really is good to see you again. I have to figure out my beard game to see how I can keep my beard from getting this gray. I don't know how you do that, Tim, but
we're not going to talk about that.
All right, fair enough, then. And I appreciate the work of the People's Lobby and what you all have meant to county government. Look, in the midst of this pandemic, it's been a strain on everyone. 3 things that I'm most proud of is 1, 40,000 additional families now have health insurance through our governmentally ran healthcare system. We expanded that in the midst of this pandemic. We opened up a brand new clinic in the 1st District that has now serviced 100,000 families within its first barely a full year. But what I'm most proud of is that it was through the work of the People's Lobby that helped us craft the Justice for Black Lives that essentially established a framework of how county government would distribute the dollars that we receive from the federal government. And as a result of that, we are putting millions of dollars into key programs that will help reduce violence, give people more access to healthcare, and really to strengthen our communities as a whole. We still have a long way to go. I'll close with this. There is still a real economic drain on our community because of the lack of economic stability. And what the county has to do is be far more forthright in creating and expanding public service jobs. By investing in our infrastructure and creating jobs, I believe that's ultimately what's going to create stability within our communities. Until we do that, we're never going to feel safe until every single family in Cook County is working and has a decent paying job and access to affordable housing. So I'm looking forward to the work ahead, and that's why I'm glad to have the support of People's Lobby, because I need 4 more years to get some of that stuff done.
Commissioner, well, we appreciate you and we appreciate all your hard work. And so thank you so much for all that you've done. I want to toss the ball over to our candidates running for office. So first question is to Josina Morita. What county programs and services are most important to the people you're running to represent? And what will you do to strengthen them when you're in office?
Thanks, Tim, and thanks for having me. I'm honored to have the support of the People's Lobby. I've been an organizer around racial and economic justice for over 20 years. I've partnered with the People's Lobby for some time. We won the fight here to protect the minimum wage a number of years ago together, so it's great to be here. I am fighting for a number of issues. I think we all know that there's not just one front that we're fighting on. So I'm fighting to make Cook County more equitable, accessible, and sustainable. I'm excited to continue to partner with the People's Lobby to ensure that the Pretrial Fairness Act is implemented the way that we have been fighting for. I'm the chair of the Asian American Caucus, and we saw many of the gaps in terms of services for smaller, linguistically, culturally isolated communities like those in the Asian American community. So fighting to make sure that we have the kind of infrastructure and partnerships in communities that oftentimes don't have access to the Cook County Health and Hospital system. We saw those gaps during COVID, so fighting to help build those relationships, develop some non-traditional partners for the Cook County Health and Hospital system across Cook County and those communities. And to make Cook County more sustainable. I've been an environmental justice activist and worked on equity issues as an MWRD commissioner. So also looking forward to be able to make sure that one of our great assets, the Cook County Forest Preserve, is accessible to everybody within the 13th district, but everybody across Cook County. And also excited to work together. We have this once in a generation opportunity around the American Rescue Plan, infrastructure, federal dollars coming through Cook County. And so working together to make sure that those resources are really, justice oriented, equitably distributed, and to work in partnership to develop some creative ideas and solutions that'll have impact for generations. So thank you guys again for the opportunity. I look forward to working with everybody.
Thank you so much for all the work that you've done in your current position. I look forward to seeing the things that you're going to accomplish in your next role. All right, next question. Anthony Quezada, it's good to see you. I feel like the pandemic's taken us away from seeing each other so long.
Likewise, Tim.
Same question to you. What county programs and services are most important to the people you're running to represent? And what would you do to strengthen them when you're in office?
Absolutely. I just want to make sure you can hear me correctly, right?
You're good.
Fantastic. Well, I've had the honor of, working alongside the People's Lobby for over 6 years now. This is one of my home organizations where I first started community organizing, and also where I took a rest in making sure we held billionaires like Ken Griffin accountable to making sure that he paid his fair share of taxes. And that's something that I will, champion as well as a county commissioner. But over the past, 6-7 weeks, I've had the honor of speaking with thousands of voters in the 8th district. And very consistently, I've heard of people who are relying on the county care healthcare program. So it's great to hear, Commissioner Johnson talk about how we're expanding investments into that. And it's great to hear that Josina is agreeing that we need to continue to do more to make sure that healthcare is a human right. Like Josina, I have a extensive platform to make sure that we're protecting the environment and creating green jobs so that we can preserve the beautiful biodiversity of our Cook County Forest Preserve system. We also want to make sure that we're providing tax relief to working and middle class families by making sure that corporations and the ultra rich are paying their fair share of taxes. And then, as Senator Robert Peters said earlier, we need to make sure that we're fighting for public safety for all, to make sure that we are addressing the the devastating cycles of disinvestment in our communities by making sure we're investing in resources, in good paying jobs, and providing mental health services, and ensuring quality public schools and affordable housing. And then lastly, something that I have been working on very closely in my time working in the 35th Ward office and as a community organizer is that we need to address homelessness and poverty in our communities. We're currently in a housing crisis like we've never seen before in the United States. The population of people experiencing homelessness in Chicago has only increased throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. So we definitely want to make sure that Cook County is playing a greater role in addressing homelessness by expanding programs like the Cook County Land Bank for emergency housing and long-term affordable housing on the Northwest side and across Cook County. And as commissioner, I want to make sure that we're working with city agencies and county agencies like the Department of Housing, the Chicago Housing Authority, and nonprofit affordable housing organizations to make sure that we're expanding our affordable housing stock and expanding direct assistance to individuals in need.
That's awesome. Looks like you all got a lot of work ahead of you, but I look forward to this election. I look forward to giving you all a little shoe leather as we get Brandon reelected and get you two elected as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Abby. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Good evening, friends. My name is Abby Lewis, and I'm a volunteer organizer on the Oak Park core team for the People's Lobby. I want to give a quick thank you to all of our endorsed candidates for being here tonight. Thank you so much. And thanks too to all of you for being here today. I'm just thrilled to see you all here. But we have some work to do now. In the Facebook or YouTube comments, you will see a link to a Google form where you can tell us what you can do to help elect these amazing people. You can also purchase clipboards, snacks, and other materials our canvassers need. These elections are often won or lost by just a few hundred votes, and every conversation we have with our neighbors makes a difference. Together, we can elect people from our communities who share our values to represent us in the halls of power. While you're doing that, I do want to take a second and tell you a little bit about why I'm knocking on doors, and it's deeply personal for me. I'm involved in advocacy for a number of reasons. Some are certainly more global, some are simply because my family and I have been affected. And one reason in particular has a very personal effect on me and my kids, but also a long and lasting one in all of our communities. And I want to give a quick warning. The story that I'm about to tell is around gun violence and suicide. Last summer, my family and I were enjoying an afternoon on the beach and witnessed a man walk up the pier and randomly begin shooting people who were just out enjoying the sunshine. He shot at a man on a jet ski. He shot a grandmother and grandfather from 8 feet away. My husband and I watched them fall to the ground before we could scream at our girls to run up the beach, out of the water, and up a steep hill where we thought we were safe. And he kept shooting until he had 1 bullet left, which he saved for himself. My girls were 6 and 11 at the time. There were a lot of issues, obviously, that came into play as this event unfolded. Certainly, the person that carried out the shooting needed more services, from family to mental health. Certainly, through investment in our neighborhoods, he might have found the resources he needed before he ever picked up a weapon. Our endorsed candidates are committed to being change makers for us. They have the imagination, the motivation, and the passion to make our neighborhoods and our communities safer and thriving. And they are inspiring, sure, but not only that, they're who we need on the ground to get the funding and the legislation to make necessary progress in our neighborhoods. It's easy to organize behind folks you trust and believe in, but it wasn't necessarily something that always felt easy for me or natural. Up until my first campaign, I had never participated in a phone bank. I had certainly never knocked on a stranger's door. Getting involved with the People's Lobby and participating in their canvassing efforts felt to me a bit out of character at first, but then I did it. And I knocked on my first door just last year, and it wasn't scary. I met amazing people, And I had an opportunity myself to meet people who were just like me, wondering how they could do more and how they should do more. Will you join me here today by signing up for at least one door-to-door canvas shift, a phone bank shift, or a text bank shift? Tell us what you can do right now by filling out the Google form in the comments section of Facebook or YouTube. Don't wait until tomorrow. And I, for one, am excited to be back in person with folks door knocking. But phone banking or text banking can be done from the comfort of your own home, making it more accessible for many people. An effective canvas takes materials too, literature, clipboards, food for volunteers, and you can click through to Amazon right now to purchase the things that we need to door knock. I have personally knocked on many, many more doors in support of candidates I believe in, and I will continue to do so. Our participation is critical to re-electing or electing this slate of candidates, and their successful election will further solidify our progressive governing power. People power does make a difference. We've seen it play out in many other elections with success. We make a difference. You can make a difference. I hope you've had a chance to fill out that form, and thank you so very, very much for your support.
Abby, thank you so much for sharing that story and for reminding us of the reality of why so many of us are involved in this. That was, I'm so sorry that you went through that. And I thank you for bringing that really important context to everything that's going on this evening. It reminds us that there is urgency for what we're doing here. It reminds me actually back to earlier this evening when we were talking with Kina and Delia, and both of them separately said that the people who are closest to the pain should be closest to the power. And we at the People's Lobby know that's true, and that's why we're here. That's why we are connecting with these candidates who are all about the people and the planet. This is the kind of work that we are inviting you to join us in. So as Abby encouraged us to do, I am going to just echo that call that you take a moment to sign up for a canvas, to come and meet the candidates, meet the other people in the People's Lobby. There's a lot of us. I think we're extremely cool. And make sure you door knock at some point this season. I just am thrilled by how exciting this evening has been. What a strong reminder it has been of how badly we need people in this work to stand behind our champions and our leaders who are doing such important things. My favorite of which, honestly, is the Pretrial Fairness Act, just getting rid of cash bail. That there is nothing that even comes close in my mind. So thank you to all of our candidates who spoke with us this evening, for all of the work you've been doing and all of the work you will do. Thank you to all of the volunteers who were a part of this event. Thank you to all of you for coming, and also a thank you to Maui Jones and Reflect Media. If you think this whole setup looks cool, that is entirely Maui's doing. So thanks to Maui, thanks to all of the candidates, thanks to the People's Lobby, and we look forward to seeing you at some doors. Have a good evening, everyone.
And we are